Did anybody look up the honey badger? No? Who did? Oh, Stoffel. I think it's his name, or Stoffel. 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 Yeah, give him a look. He's pretty neat. And I got to thinking about just a little note here. We looked up, somebody got a good picture. I think it was Mary Ann, got a really good picture of a badger. And their coat, I said it's white and black, but it's actually a grayish color on top. So if they would have put these on there, it would have been a very dingy looking thing because it was just a grayish color. And the whole point was that, not to draw attention to it because it's is full of gold, and silver and all kinds of precious things in there. And plus it's the Lord's things. And he didn't draw attention. And the same thing when the Lord Jesus Christ showed up, there was nothing about him physically that would have drew somebody's attention to him until you found out what was on the inside. Just like you do this tabernacle, you find out what's on the inside, you're like, whoa. So we've talked a little bit about the purpose of the tabernacle. That's the only thing we've covered. Now we're going to talk about the preclusion of the wall. We're going to start with the wall, start with the outside and move our way in. Look at Exodus chapter 27. And we're only going to read, I think we're only going to read like 10 or 11 verses. And then from that, we're just going to draw some, like I said, this is not, what's the word I'm looking at? Exhaustive, yeah. This is very limited study, but give you some of the major things. I don't think, there's no end to this. You could probably write a thesis on every one of these points I've got. Exodus 27, did I say 27? Okay, Exodus 27, look at verse 9. He says there, and thou shalt make the court of the tabernacle. For the south side southward there shall be hangings for the court of fine twined linen of 100 cubits long for one side, and 20 pillars thereof, and their sockets shall be of brass. The hooks of the pillars and their fillets shall be of silver. And likewise for the north side, in length there shall be hangings of 100 cubits long, and his 20 pillars and their 20 sockets of brass, and the hooks of the pillars and their fillets of silver. And for the breadth of the court on the west side shall be hangings of 50 cubits, their pillars 10, and their sockets 10. And the breadth of the court on the east side eastward, shall be 50 cubits. The hangings on one side of the gate shall be 15 cubits. Their pillars 3, their sockets 3. And on the other side shall be hangings 15 cubits, their pillars 3, and their sockets 3. And for the gate of the court shall be a hanging of 20 cubits, of blue and of purple and scarlet and fine twined linen, wrought with needlework, and their pillars shall be 4, and their sockets 4. And all the pillars round about the court shall be filleted with silver, their hooks shall be of silver, and their sockets of brass. And the length of the court shall be 100 cubits, and the breadth 50 everywhere, and the height 5 cubits of fine twined linen, and their sockets of brass. All the vessels of the tabernacle, and all the service thereof, and all the pins thereof, and all the pins of the court shall be of brass. So he's telling you giving you all the construction materials, giving you the how big it should be and all that, and we'll break all that down into feet so you get a little bit better idea. So it's walled on 3 sides. It's walled on 3 sides, and on one side you have the access or the opening, the gate. The length of the north and south sides is 100 cubits, or using a standard cubit, which is 18 inches. Now, they could have been using a king's cubit, or I guess there was a larger unit. I don't know how much larger, but if I just measure from here to here, 18 inches, it's 1.5 feet. I'm sorry, from the elbow to the tip of the middle finger. Here I am. 18 inches. Okay. I'll get it right here. Anyway, and I think I had down the wrong number. I had 160 feet. Well, it's 150 feet. If it's 1.5 feet and there's 100 cubits, it's 150 feet. So half of a football field. That's the length of it. And the length of the east and west sides were 50 cubits, or around 75 feet. So I think if I'm not mistaken, a football field is like 120 Oh, no, it's 60 yards wide, I think. I'm talking about real football. Okay. Is it 50 feet or 50 yards? Okay, which would be 150, huh? 150 feet. Really? What? Yep, that's right. Okay. Well, this is 75 feet of that, so it's half of that. So half of a football field long and half of a football field wide. Is that right? Somebody do the calculation. I think that's right. It's not that hard, really. Huh? Yeah. 4 tabernacles. There you go. There's only one way in. That was the door or gate. And it was 20 cubits wide or 30 feet. Pretty good sized gate, 30 foot. The height of the wall was 5 cubits, and that works out to be about 7.5 feet. Nobody tall enough to look over it. The materials for the court included fine twined linen, were made from fibers of the flax plant. And so what it's made out of, God made. God made that plant, the flax plant. It's approximately 500 feet of linen that was 7.5 feet wide. Don't you know that's a bolt of fabric? 500 feet of it, because you're going all the way around, and then and there's a portion of the gate, 20 cubits on each side of the gate that's covered too. So the length of it would be like 1 2/3 football field, or 405 feet of wall. That's minus the gate. 405 feet. So y'all can check my. There's a total of 60 pillars, and their sockets all made of brass. So I imagine these are the things that are holding it up in the different sections. A total of 60 hooks, and their fillets made of silver. Now, you can look up fillets, it looks, I think, makes sense, they're rings. And the hooks hook on the rings. Make sense? That's how they're setting this thing up, man. They've got the get here in a minute. What did I just say? Yeah, the pillars. You got 60 pillars, post. You've got the sockets that go on there. Then you got 60 hooks and their fillets, some type of ring that's on the curtain itself. And it's a shower curtain, man. I mean, just think of your shower curtain, how it's set up, and you pretty much got it. Let's see. The gate had blue, purple, scarlet, and white linen. 4 colors. So 4 colors. There are 4. Why have I got 4 pillars? What is that? Okay. There were 4 pillars, sockets, hooks, and fillets for the gate. All right. So let's get into some application of this. What the wall did is, and this is our title of our study this morning, is the wall precluded access. It didn't allow you in, except for one way. It rendered access impossible. It shut them out. That's one thing you get in the Old Testament is that God is not too anxious to be around them. He wants to be around them, but he kind of knows that he can't be. He talked to him one time and from the mount, and it scared him so bad they told Moses, "Why don't you talk to him? You could just tell us. We'll take your word for it." He was scared him to death. So you couldn't gain access over, under, or through the wall. Before a person is saved, they are outside of God's presence. Ephesians 2:12 says that at that time you were without Christ, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. As much as that tabernacle, was beautiful and everything, they didn't get to see it. They didn't get to go into it. They didn't even get to go into the court. And if they could, it was a very limited time that they could do that. But only the priest could go into, and a certain number of priests could go into the first part of the tabernacle, and only one, the high priest, went into the second part. And now you're talking about these millions of people that are around that, and nobody can go in. And this wall said, don't. Can I say that? Just don't. The wall pictures God's righteousness. We find in Revelation 19:8, and this is talking about the bride, and to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white, for the fine linen is the righteousness of saints. So the fine linen pictures righteousness. And that thing is a wall of righteousness around it. And it's saying, stay out. If you're not righteous, stay out. In Daniel chapter 10, verse 5 and 6, it says, then I lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen. So you got a tabernacle that's wrapped in linen. Now you got a man showing up clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with fine gold of Uphaz. His body also was like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms and his feet like in color to polished brass, and the voice of his words were like the voice of a multitude. That is a picture of Jesus Christ in the Old Testament, because you get the same picture in the New. Revelation 1, verse 13 and 14, and in the midst of the seven candlesticks, one like the Son of Man, and look at this, clothed with a garment down to the foot. Evidently, getting this garment is extremely important. And he was worthy of a garment that was from head to toe, man, or at least neck to feet. He was covered to the foot. And it says, clothed with a garment down to the foot and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet like a defined brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. So you got two pictures of it, and they're seeing the same person. Picture of him in the Old Testament, picture of him in the New. And I don't know how that worked. I don't know, an appearance of God before his incarnation. I'm trying to think of the words here. I'm sorry? Pre-incarnation, yeah. Pre-incarnate body, I guess. And it could have been represented as the angel of the Lord there. So what the wall does is separates us from God because of our sins. In Isaiah 59, verse 1 and 2, it says, behold, the Lord's hand is not shortened that it cannot save, neither is ear heavy that it cannot hear. But your iniquities have separated between you and your God, and your sins have hid his face from you, that he will not hear. So it pictures God's righteousness, but it also separates us because of that, because of our sins. And the wall also represents the law of commandments. It represents the law too. I mean, he fulfilled the righteousness of the law, right? The law of commandments. Ephesians 2, verse 14 to 16, it says, for he is our peace, who hath made both one, and hath broken down the middle wall of partition between us, having abolished in his flesh the enmity, even the law of commandments. He broke down the wall. Jesus Christ made God acceptable, or not acceptable, but accessible to everyone by fulfilling that and breaking down that middle wall. That wall also was like a separation between us and the Jews, but it had to do with the law of commandments. But he abolished that in his flesh. That's why, these things, that veil inside there is going to picture his flesh. The Bible tells us that. I'm going to get ahead of myself here. But the law of commandments contained in ordinances to make in himself of twain one new man, so making peace, that he might both reconcile to God in one body by the cross, having slain the enmity thereby. Well, I mean, the law The law is good and holy and righteous, but man, the law is killing us. Why? Because we're the weak link. We break the law. Nothing wrong with the law, but there's something wrong with, let's put it this way, there's nothing wrong with the law, but the law becomes your enemy when you're a transgressor. The only break in the law is the door, the gate that brings the believer and God together. That's the only break in it. And he had to create that break. The only way in was through the door. All others were what? If you don't come in through the door, what are you? I'm going to turn on this fan. A little warm here. You're a thief and a robber. In John 10, verse 1 and 2, he said, Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that entereth not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. But he that entereth in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. The thief cometh not but for to steal and to kill. This is verse 9 and 10. I've only got verse 10. I don't know, I got verse 9 down here. The thief cometh not but for to steal, to kill, and to destroy. I am come that they might have life, and that they may have it more abundantly. I think the verse I was looking for where he says, I am the door, by me if any man enter in. He'll find pasture or whatever. So the only way in was through the door. The wall pictures man's blindness to what God is doing. You know, it's not like it was a fence, chain link fence where you could look through it and see what's going on. It was a solid wall, and it was 7.5 feet high. And it went the length of it, so you couldn't look through it. You couldn't get under it. You couldn't look above it. So you were blind to what God was doing. You couldn't see what he was doing. That's basically what's going on now. Until you get in that book, you're blind to what God is doing. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 9. Go ahead and turn there. I haven't let you all turn to him yet, so. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 9, he says, But as it is written, eye hath not seen nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him. All right? So when he first prepared that tabernacle, who got to see inside there? Who got to experience that, the presence of God? Who got to see all the things that God had? Well, the priests and the Levites who were servicing the temple, they were the only ones. They were a particular class. Everybody else was kind of outside, not knowing. But because of Jesus Christ, now we can know what God has prepared. We get to go beyond the veil. We get to go beyond the wall. We have access. He said, But the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God. This is verse 14. The things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him, neither can he know them because they're spiritually discerned. Now God has given us understanding of what he has prepared. John 9:25, he answered and said, whether he be a sinner or no, he says, I know not, one thing I know, that wherein I was blind, now I see. And that's pretty much, you get saved and then all of a sudden you get to see all the different things that God's prepared for you and got for you. A new body, a home in heaven, New Jerusalem, a new heaven, a new earth. You get to see those things. I mean, I don't know about you, but I had no idea. I mean, I've never heard that stuff in my entire life. And in church, I've been to church a few times before I was saved, but I'd never heard that stuff. I had no idea that stuff was already there. I was blind to it. But when you get inside the wall, you know, when you're in the in crowd, when you've got access, then all of a sudden you can see what God's prepared. The wall kind of preached its own message, and as long as you remain on the outside, sin lieth at the door. That's what that wall told you. And you got to think about all these pictures this thing is going to picture. That, not just the righteousness of God, but the fact that you're on the outside and you can't even look in. God said, stay away. Stay away. I think the fact that since God's not speaking from heaven and he's not showing himself, you would think folks would think to themselves, why isn't God interacting with us? I mean, why isn't he? People say, well, why doesn't he just talk to us from heaven? But he doesn't, does he? Why? Well, there's something separating us from God. There's something separating us from fellowshipping with him face to face. Or he would probably be down here, right? I don't know. The world is like, oh well, duh. You know, he must not be there. Well, how about there's something wrong with you, and that's the reason he's not here? There's something wrong with us. Listen, the minute the Lord gets everything worked out, guess what? There's a new heaven, a new earth, and a new Jerusalem, and guess where he's dwelling? Right there among us. But not until. I mean, you got the man Jesus Christ dwelling and ruling and reigning. I realize he's the second person of the Godhead, but you do not have the Father coming down, and I can't explain that difference between those two and why one won't dwell among men until the problem's taken care of and the other one can. But it is the man Christ Jesus. In Romans 7, verse 12 and 13, it says, wherefore the law is holy, the commandment holy, just, and good. Was then that which is good made death unto me? God forbid. But sin that it might appear sin. Working death in me by that which is good, that sin by the commandment might become exceeding sinful. How do you know you're exceeding sinful? Denied access. Denied. You want to come in? Denied. There's nothing like exclusion or preclusion keeping you out and letting you know you don't measure up. I mean, think about, most of these Jews had no idea what went on inside there. They may have understood the different things that were in there, the different pieces of furniture, but man, they were not allowed any access to that. Let's talk about the way in. The only way in was through the door. In Acts 4:12, it says, neither is there salvation in any other, for there is none other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. There's only one way. That tells you this. You notice there's not a back door. Not a back door. You can't use religion or keeping the law or, doing good to your neighbor as a back door into heaven. It won't work. There's only one way in, and there's a reason for that. Jesus saith in John 14:6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. How's that? Through that door or gate, whatever you want to call it. He said in Matthew 7:13 and 14, he says, enter ye in at the straight gate. Think about it. The straight gate is the narrow gate. Enter ye into the straight gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction. That means any other way you go. And many there be that go in thereat, because straight is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. So we only put one access into that tabernacle. And compared to the rest of it, it is a narrow opening, but it's still, it's big enough for a couple cars to drive through, if you want to. This also has something to do with a way into heaven. Has something to do with the passage that God's going to make going through the great deep. Maybe a narrow way. Revelation 4:1, it says, after this I looked, and behold, a door was opened in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was as it were of a trumpet talking with me, which said, come up hither, and I will show thee things that must be hereafter. Now, I've got another verse down here. John 10:9, he said, I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved and shall go in and out and find pasture. Okay? So he's saying he's the door. Well, he's the one that opens the door too. Notice it says we go in. That's rapture. Then it says we go out. Second advent. And the millennial reign is the pasture. Okay? Well, that tabernacle pictures that. That door, man. It's the in and the out. So The wall preached its own message, but the gate preaches its message too. That door says come. Okay? Most people have a welcome mat, welcome. Mine says go away. No, welcome. And people will knock on your door. Why? Well, they won't knock on your window. If they do, you shoot them. No, I'm just kidding. That was just a joke. But if you don't expect them to go, knocking on the side of the wall of your house, or hope to God they're not peeking in your windows, but they come and knock at the door. Why? That's where you're welcome to come to. That's where you're invited to come in, The gate says come, and that's Revelation 22:17, and the Spirit and the bride say, come. And let him that heareth say, come. And let him that is athirst, come. And whosoever will, let him take of the water of life freely. Isaiah 55:1-3 says, Ho, everyone that thirsteth, come ye to the waters, and he that hath no money, come ye buy and eat, yea, come buy wine and milk without money and without price. Wherefore do ye spend money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which satisfieth not? Hearken diligently unto me, and eat ye that which is good, and let your soul delight itself in fatness. He's inviting us. Well, I'm ahead of myself here, what I'm thinking about here. Anyway, ho, everyone that thirsteth, come ye to the waters. So it's an invitation to come in. And when you enter in east to west. That's the direction, east to west. It's true of the gospel, traveled east to west. A lot of times you find in the Bible a positive direction was east to west, a negative direction was west to east. When Adam and Eve left the garden, they went west to east. I think, Abraham traveled east to west. I was trying to think of some others. There's a bunch of them. But all good movements. Well, I got a few of them here. Abraham traveled east to west to the promised land. Israel traveled east to west coming into the promised land. The gospel traveled east to west. You got the saying, go west, young man. Opportunity, and it's just a good direction. Now, I'm not saying if God leads you to go west to east that, I don't think I get too, my work, my job's east to west, or west to east, I got to quit. No. Because you're traveling home east to west, right? So, Sun rises in the east, travels to the west. Yep. There's all kinds of things like that in the Bible. There's a difference between north and south, especially when it comes to wars. The north always seems to win. Now look back through history and see. Okay? Most of the time the north wins. Even when they're up against a superior force like the United States of America, North Vietnam pulled it off because we left. North Korea pulled it off because, we had an armistice. We never really ended that war. It's kind of interesting how that works, isn't it? Should we go against Russia? They are north of us. I don't think I would. I don't think the Ukraine's going to survive. Just saying. Yep. Remember the Alamo, yeah. Now, you said, well, what about Israel? But you got to remember now, Israel's not numbered among the nations, and God is their protector, and he's north of everybody. So you want to talk about extreme north. Now the number of the gate is 4. There are 4 brass pillars, okay? There are 4 gospel accounts of the suffering of Christ. There are 4 hooks of silver, which speaks of redemption, and he talks about being fishers of men. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think the first 4 men he calls are fishermen. I think it's the first 4. There are 4 colors in the gate: purple, scarlet, blue, and white. Jesus is depicted in the gospel 4 ways: as a king, as a servant, as the Son of Man, and as the Son of God. Purple speaks of royalty and deity and an elevated status. He is a king. Scarlet speaks of the blood which he shed, the sacrifice of a servant. Blue is the heavenly man, the Son of God from heaven. He's called the Son of Man in Luke. And then white pictures his sinlessness and righteousness. We can say the sinless Son of God. I'm just kind of applying all those to the four Gospels. I think it works pretty good. Let me give you this. Is that the last? Yep. And let me give you this last part here. Mystery Babylon has only two of the colors. What's the two they have? Purple and scarlet. The purple is the fake royalty and deity of the Pope, who calls himself the Vicar of Christ. Look in Matthew 27:28. Matthew 27, verse 28. It says, and they stripped him and put on him what? Scarlet robe. Right? Well, that should have been reversed. I wanted the purple one. That's John 19:2. Go ahead and turn there. We'll read both of them, then I'll John 19, verse 2. No, I'm not in John. Yep. Get there in a minute. John 19:2, and the soldiers platted a crown of thorns and put it on his head, and they put on him a purple robe. Of course, everybody says, well, that's a purple and scarlet, two different colors. How could that work? How about purple on one side and scarlet on the other? Would that work? Yeah. Sometime you ought to just, next time a pope kicks the bucket and they're trying to elect another pope, they always show the birds of Babylon, the cardinals out there, and what you'll see is they're wearing two types of garb. There's some that are wearing purple, and no kidding, or some that are wearing scarlet, a lot of them wear scarlet, and some of them that wear purple. I've seen it. I've seen it on TV. I watched them. Their colors are purple and scarlet. And what they lack is the blue and the white. Well, we know blue is what? It's about the heavenly man. This fellow ain't from heaven, man. He's fake. And the white pictures righteousness, and they're certainly not right. So they lack the blue and the white, but they've got the purple and the scarlet colors. Jesus Christ has all of them. He's got all of them. Okay. We'll stop there. That's the... I know I'm with it. You know what? I skipped some stuff. Oh my goodness. How did I jump all the way down there like that? Wow. Okay, real quick. The gate was 20 cubits wide. Joseph, who's the type of Christ, was sold for 20 pieces of silver. One of the greatest types of Christ in the Bible. That's in Genesis 37:28. Yep. Huh? Did I say Jacob? I thought I said Joseph. Whew. It's going to be a rough day, folks. Joseph, who is a type of Christ, sold for 20 pieces of silver. In Ruth, Boaz is the kinsman redeemer, great type of Jesus Christ, Ruth type of the bride, and his name is in the book of Ruth exactly 20 times. So you got that door. He said, John 10:9, I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved and shall go in and out and find pasture. So these guys picture that, and of course, those numbers start showing up. Yeah, I think that's the only thing I missed. Yep, I just skipped over that. All right. Anybody got a question what we covered? Sorry, I'm so kind of scrambled. Okay. All right, no questions. Let's take a break. It's 1:45. We got top of the hour.